Hello and welcome to On the Irregular with me, Java Beret, a podcast where I chat to women from all walks of life about their own unique creative journey, how they got here, how their story has shaped their creative work, what they've learned, what has helped them, and where they plan to go from here. It's an irregular journey for so many of us, and I'm delighted to offer a platform to share these fascinating stories and wells of wisdom. In this episode, I talk to actor, writer, and singer Sandra Cole. Once upon a time, many years ago, I had the honour of being Sandra's acting agent. I adored Sandra and always knew there was more I'd like to talk to her about than audition times and self-tapes. So finally, I got my chance. Sandra graced me with her gentle, winding thoughts on grief, the fear we often have of our own power, how her recent health has impacted her attitude to life, her experience as a black woman in white Briton, the whim, hoff method, and the strength we can find in loving and being open. We start in Camberwell, London 1962, as one of 7 sisters, then pass through biochemistry, following her path into acting, becoming a mother at 28, and then find ourselves finally in Lancashire talking about why Sandra writes and how being comes before doing. Welcome to my conversation with the deeply moving and deeply funny Sandra Cole.
It's that thing of just so being focused on me.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it was just, I was brought up to put everyone else first, as many women are, to be a good mother, because I'm of the generation, good mother, good wife, well educated. My mum made sure we were all very well educated, but then I just thought, but then you want me to be a mother and a wife.
Yeah.
That's a bit confusing, right?
Yeah, I can completely see that.
Why are you sending me to university when you just want me to be barefoot and pregnant? Why are you sending me to university?
Yeah.
That doesn't make no damn sense.
To what end? Yeah.
So it was. It's taken me. I'll be 60 in October.
Yeah.
So it's. I've decided this is the autumn of my life. Time to harvest all the hard work and try and just relax a bit.
Yeah. Well, seeing as we've gone in so deep, so quickly, which I always knew would happen with you, Sandra, would you like to start from the beginning, from 1962 in Camberwell, London?
So, my parents are from originally British Guyana in South America. So it was a British colony. And they were invited over by the British government to help rebuild the country after the Second World War. So they came in the 50s. My mum was a domestic, then a seamstress. And that was in Guyana. And then when my dad came over first, and he worked for British Rail as an engineer. Mm-hmm. And then my mum qualified as a hairdresser. And then I think the story goes, my mum then taught my dad everything she knew. And then my dad built this hairdressing empire in Brixton.
Oh, wow.
So mum would help him and they also raised 6 girls. They had 7, but Maureen died when she was a baby.
Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. Gosh, so you're one of 7 then?
Yeah, so my dad would always say he had 7 daughters. Mm-hmm. He always counted Glory. Yeah, so I'm kind of the middle child, including Glory. So mum and dad worked. They there was a thing called a partner. So people would help each other buy houses. So each month, everyone would put money in, and because they couldn't get loans from the bank as black people, so they would help each other buy homes, and people who bought homes would then also rent their homes out to help people who couldn't get accommodation.
Oh wow, was this a community organised scheme, or was
yeah the people got together and just said we need to help each other out? So it's called a partner. People still throw partners now. I mean, the only drawback with it is that it depends on where you are on the list. So if you're last, it means you have to wait a bit longer, but it means you just buy your house outright.
Oh, wow, that's a terrific idea.
Yeah, so I mean, when we were little, we had as 3 properties.
Mm-hmm.
And because the family grew and grew and grew, so Dad had the hairdressing shop, then he had a record shop, he had 2 record shops.
Wow.
So the hairdressing shop was on Atlantic Road, and then the record shop was on Electric Avenue. You know that song? That's where he used to go and listen to his records.
Oh, fantastic.
Eddie Grant and my dad were friends up until my dad died in 2007.
Okay.
So they were, it's only recently dawned on me that my parents were immigrants. Yeah, I just went, oh, these immigrants that people are talking about, my parents were immigrants.
Yeah.
So I'm a child of an immigrant, and part of that is that you work hard, you study hard, whatever you do 100%. No time for messing about. My mum very, very into education. Mm-hmm. She was, because she had to leave school at 13 in Guyana to work and support her family. So she always wanted us to have what she didn't have, if you know what I mean. My parents, 2 very beautiful, hardworking. My mum passed away 3 years ago yesterday, actually. So yesterday was quite hard, saying goodbye to her again. It's like grief is a funny thing, isn't it? It
doesn't go away, and it just kind of pops up sometimes when you least expect it. And
that's why I wanted to honor my mum yesterday, because it's someone said to me, oh, isn't it better to celebrate birthdays? I said, well, I do birthdays as well.
Yeah, I think honoring a loss is as important, because it's marking another moment as well in your life, and it's physical. I really think grief is a physical thing. Like, I've definitely internalized, I feel it, right? For example, because we lost our baby daughter on the 1st of December 8 years ago, and the 2 weeks leading up to it, I lose my mind. I go crackers.
It's hard. It's really, and I think there's nothing wrong with acknowledging how much it impacts on our, like you say, our bodies, our mental health. And there's so much that we ignore. My sister was saying how the Koreans have a ceremony where they have a meal, the family gets together and they set a place for the people who have passed.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Memory, and they share memories of that person. And I think it's, though I think I talk about my mum daily. I mean, I'm always quoting my mother. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I just go, okay, who are you? Oh, you're your mother.
You know what? I think isn't that such a beautiful way of them still being here, that you can see their mannerisms, you can see them in your face, in the things that you come out with. It's like, oh, hello, hi, it's you.
And I've found myself saying things to Roger, my husband, or saying things to my daughter and going, okay, Mum, this is my relationship. All right, let me deal with the people the way I want to deal with them. Even my daughter comes out with things that my mum used to say. So we always talk about grandma, and when she died, my daughter and I, we by chance said, well, let's get the train down to London together, because we never do that. We always we've got quite separate lives. We're close, but we get on with what we need, independent. You know what I mean? And we just decided, let's go down. The same day we find out Mum's gone into, Mum was already in hospital. Then as we were traveling down, Mum went into a hospice.
Oh, wow.
And the next day, Mum passed away. So we were all there.
Gosh.
It was, Arab and I keep going, that was amazing.
Yeah. It's like she was calling you together.
Yeah. So, and I often think, how my mum was very powerful in life. Don't get me wrong. No one really messed with my mum. But I can't help feeling that she's her power, her energy is still here with me if I am open to it and if I acknowledge it and not be afraid of it. And how else do we move forward? Like, I write about and think about my ancestors, even though I don't know exactly who they were. They obviously existed, because otherwise I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. That's
where all my genetics come from. That's where my creativity comes from. That's where my resilience comes from.
Yeah.
So excuse me, I'm not saying by any means that sort of my parents were perfect, but if they produced me, they couldn't have got it too wrong. You get me?
Yes, absolutely.
As my daughter always says, I posted a picture of me in my gold bikini. And she said, well, with those jeans, I can't go wrong.
Correct.
Not to blow my own trumpet, but I always say, if I don't blow my trumpet, who's going to blow it?
Exactly. Celebrate yourself.
Yeah. And this is what, again, I think it's something that I don't like to talk men and women, but I do think that women need to blow their own trumpet more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's something that I know men who will blow their trumpet when they can't even play a tune. You get me? Yeah. Whole arsenal of skills, and we're sort of, what was it? Who was it? Was it Nelson Mandela that was saying that it's our duty to go out and shine?
It's often attributed to Nelson Mandela, but it's a female. She's like because it's a poem. It's like, who am I to be bright and to shine? And it's a duty to God or for us to shine as bright as we can, and that it's not our darkness that we're afraid of, it's our light that we're afraid of. And I think he read it out, and it feels very pertinent to Nelson Mandela, doesn't it? But I can't remember the name of her. I'll try and remember.
And isn't that always the way?
Yeah.
So the woman I write it, the man I say it, and that's what you remember.
I'm gonna Google it now, but it's beautiful. I always come back to that. To that poem, because it's so. I think I can definitely relate to it. It's kind of quite terrifying to truly understand your own power, I think, because it's like, well, how far will that go, and where will that take me, and will I get burnt, I suppose.
Yeah. I remember when I was having counselling. I've had quite a lot of counselling, and I think it's really important. I think it's an investment in myself and my mental health, and I can't remember which counsellor it was now, but I remember I was going through this thing talking about fear of my own power and saying, I kind of think like I'm the Incredible Hulk. So don't push me too far. You know, when he says you wouldn't like me when I'm angry. And I used to have this vision of me just bursting into this huge green woman with breasts and bum and hands and nails and big hair and just mashing you all up.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like you describing that, to me that just screams goddess. Like, kind of like just like pure power and exaggerated. And I think we're taught from so young to be smaller and submissive.
Yes. And I just think that, don't get me wrong, again, it's like two sides of the same coin, isn't it? I think it is lovely to be able to be vulnerable, and one of the things that I've learned in my relationship with Roger is that to be safe and to be able to be vulnerable and be protected, oh my days, is so nice. It's so lovely. But also, don't mess with me.
Yeah, you can be both. You can be both. We're all both, aren't we?
Yeah.
I've just found the quote. It's by Marianne Williamson, and I'll just read a little bit of it. It says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God, however you perceive God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Yeah. Easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You okay? Oh, Sandra. Take a moment.
That line where she says, as children do.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I had to come out of teaching, actually, is because I hated the way most of the teachers I came into contact with treated the children. And I used to spend, I was hardly ever in the staff room. If you're going to find me, you'd be find me hanging out with the children. And I would, you know, I was labeled trouble, a free spirit. And I'm like, yeah, and your point is?
Yeah.
The children would give me jokes, and the children would bring their problems to me and their pain to me. And I just thought, why have we created these buildings? And this is, I'm talking about inner London, where we're putting our children where they're miserable, and we're teaching them how not to shine.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I went into teaching is because I loved school. I loved both the schools I went to. I was encouraged to shine. I was encouraged to do what I enjoyed doing. I was encouraged to speak up. I didn't really speak much until I got to primary school, well, which was about the age of 7 or 8. And I had this teacher, David Charles Rees, who really encouraged me to be who I was. And I think that's the thing with it. If we're just given the opportunity to be who we are, and I just feel that our education system is the opposite of that. I was very lucky with my teachers in my schools, and even they in a way failed me. I remember going to when I was doing my A-levels and going to the careers officer. The woman kept saying to me, go into nursing.
Yeah.
And then after the biochemistry degree, same thing again, go into nursing. And by the time I'd done the biochemistry degree, I was determined to be an actor by then. I was determined that this is not for me. I know I can do it, but I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, just because you're skilled or good or naturally good at something doesn't mean that needs to be your path. And
don't get me wrong, it's fed into other things.
Yeah.
You know, the moment I was glad that I had a biochemistry degree is when I was a baby. She was 8 weeks old, and they wanted to vaccinate her with is it the MMR?
Yeah, I remember that time.
Other one.
Yeah.
And I was saying, look, I'm breastfeeding. She's only 8 weeks old. She's perfect. Why do I need to do this now? And you know, and I had a homeopath, and I was taking responsibility for her and everything. And the GP said to me, well, you seem to know a lot about alternative medicine, but what do you know about, that's, and I said, well, I do have a degree in biochemistry.
Boom.
Bam! Oh, God! I'm going to tell you something. That made that 3 years of hell worth every second. In my shut him out. Oh gosh, and I know pride comes before a fall, but oh my God.
Oh, brilliant.
So walking out of that office. And I know there's loads of controversy around vaccinations, and I don't want to take up this time going through all that. But having that science background, and again, in my teaching, when I did my teacher training and whenever I had to do anything scientific with the children, when I was teaching in primary school, I had one class when I did my teacher training, they could name most of the bones in the human body.
Wow. That's impressive.
I think patella was their favorite. They were dropping that word all the time. And that's the thing, when you're teaching primary school children, they will pick up anything.
Yeah. They
will pick up anything and everything. I don't understand why we're not teaching languages in primary school more.
I know. It's like we underestimate them.
And which doesn't make sense, because scientifically we've proven that is the case. It's been scientifically proven that teenagers are developing their frontal lobe and need more sleep. So why are we forcing them to go to school for 8:39 in the morning?
Yeah. No, I agree, because I between the age of, I guess, 2 and 8, I learned essentially 4 languages: English, Spanish, Catalan, and French. And I just absorbed them, and they're still there in my brain. English, obviously, but yeah, so yeah, no, kids, and I find that with my kids, like they'll come back from school with stuff and they'll explain like phonetics or phonics. I don't even know what you call it anymore, and I'm like, I did not know that, and they'll go into really technical language about it.
Yeah. And I just think at that age, we can expose them to everything, and see what sticks. Why can't we have theatre and opera and painting and collage and music? I remember doing a primary school with Mr. Reese, doing this whole dance thing to the planets, Holt's The Planets.
Yeah.
I remember, dance to the music, children, running around barefoot, doing all these different. Oh gosh.
He sounds like quite a remarkable teacher, because you said that he was really into maths as well, so he encouraged you in that area. And I mean, you sound like you're so kind of Renaissance in all of your different abilities, science as well as the arts and literature. It sounds like he really fostered a really wide variety of activities, I suppose.
Yeah, he was incredible, and I think he's the first adult I came into contact with that he just loved us. He kept us for 2 years, because usually you have a different teacher each year. And so for the last 2 years of primary school, we were with him. In those days, it was year 3 and 4 in the juniors, before we changed over to the American nonsense. But that's another story. But yeah, he encouraged me with my art and my stories. And I remember once I don't know if I told you, but I'd made this book about a mermaid with the pictures and the writing, and he went off to try and get it published.
That's wonderful. That's so supportive.
He honestly, he used to loan me out to other classes to help with their art projects. Apparently I was the best drawer painter in the school.
How lovely.
Which, looking back now, I didn't even realize. I just got on with it.
Yeah.
And when we took our 11 plus, which is the exam that you do at the end of juniors to get secondary school, we didn't even know we were doing a test. He would just say, come and sit with me, I want you to read these words. And I had the reading test, and you had 100 words to read, right, that got progressively difficult. And I got 99 out of 100. And the word I got wrong, gnome. I will never forgive that word. I had 100% on my reading test if it wasn't gnome. No. Every time I see that word now, I cuss. Every time. And so even though I got an A for everything, maths and English, the head teacher told my mum, well, she can't go to the grammar school because she's black.
Okay.
Literally said those words in front of me to me and my mother. And my mother was like, what?
Yeah.
My mother took me by the hand there and then and marched me down to the grammar school, because it's all in Camberwell.
Yeah.
Just marched me across Camberwell, said, I'd like to make an appointment to see the head teacher, please. I'm looking at my mouth is like this. First of all, the fact that she defied Mr. Zervadick, that was his name. Mm-hmm. He was a giant to us, but I guess now looking back, and he was only about 6'1". And this big white man, this big authority. Yeah. And my tiny mother, my mum was what, 5 foot, maybe 5'1". She was just, and to see her go, mate, my daughter is an A student and she's going to the grammar school. And of course I did, but only because she fought for me.
Your bloody mum. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, there aren't many women who immigrant women, I'll say, who would have had that confidence to say, hold on a minute, look at her results. Apart from Gnome, look at her results. That could have ruined my whole future, that word. So I went to the grammar school.
Wow, what a force. And the thing is, there's so many depressing, horrendous things about what you're saying, but when would this have been? Would this have been in the 70s, early 70s?
81 I left secondary school, so go back 7 years.
Yeah, about 73, 74, around then maybe. Because the reason I say it is that other black women that I've spoken to for the podcast who are younger than you have told me so many similar stories, parallels to this, and it would have been happening in the 90s for them.
This is the incredible thing, isn't it? I hear younger black people coming up now using almost exactly the same vocabulary and telling exactly the same stories. And I still, up until, I don't know, this week, I've been shaking my head and just going, it's 2022.
Yeah.
And I can't, and I'm not going to say nothing's changed. Things have changed. Things have progressed. There's no two ways about it. But there are still people coming up. I remember when my daughter went to university and she'd gone to state school, and she went to Durham University. She met this youngster of 18 who'd gone to a public school, and when he realized she'd gone to a state school, he literally turned on his heels and walked away. And I'm just like, so that has been instilled in him, and he will then carry that baton on of classism or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and so it just carries on. And just a note for any American listeners, in the UK, public school is private school.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I just am aware that not everyone's from the UK, and it's just such a confusing term for a private school where the elite go to. But yeah, no, exactly. So it just carries on. We can see who's running the country. It's so strong. It's so embedded.
And if they do, but I do believe there are more and more young people breaking the cycle. In the same way that I broke the cycle, there's always going to be people who are breaking the cycle, but it's that thing of, it's better to save one than nothing, than no one at all. Yeah. But sometimes it feels at the moment that we are swimming upstream, but then the salmon make it, we can make it, because I refuse to give up. I refuse to allow these negative, they are behaviors, it's training, it's brainwashing. We all lose out when it comes to racism. It's not just Black people that lose out. Yeah. We all lose out.
Yeah.
It's a loss to us all.
Yeah.
Because it's a sickness. And it keeps, but the thing is, it keeps that status quo. It keeps it as the Borises of this world want it.
Mm-hmm.
And we can either buy into that, or we can say, well, no, actually, we can only all progress if we all progress.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it can't just be, I get stick on Instagram because my husband's white. And I'm just like, I had a comment from this, it's often African Americans, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like calling Roger the oppressor. And I'm just like, who's oppressing whom now?
Right.
You're telling me it's something like I should ditch my partner or something because he's the oppressor. I'm just like, who's oppressing me now?
Yeah.
My husband doesn't oppress me. I'd like to see him try.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him try. But you, a complete stranger, is trying to oppress me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a Black woman.
Yeah.
You know, and and even that negativity doesn't move us forward.
Yeah.
People might say, oh, they're righteous in saying that all white people are the oppressors. But how does that take us forward?
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, Roger's ancestors didn't own slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they did, I'm not even going to mention some of the people. We know who they are.
Yeah.
Who descended from slave owners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not saying ignore slavery, of course not. But I'm also saying, how do we move forward if we, you know, that term, tar everybody with the same brush?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to unity? What happened to us moving forward? And there are many people of all different, I'm going to say shades because it's one color.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Mr. Reese said, there's this story where he made us, all the white children in the class had to go and get a white piece of paper out of the arts drawer. And all the Black children in the class had to go and get a black piece of paper out of the arts drawer. And we had to hold them up to our faces.
Yeah.
And he said to the white children, are you white? Are you the same color as that piece of paper? They said no. Then they asked us, are you Black? Are you the same color as that piece of paper? And we were just like, no. And it was, what he was trying to do was say, we're not a color, and they're not even colors, they're tones, actually, if we can be scientific about it. It's not a color. So but we will always find, humans will always find a way to divide and find conflict.
This episode is sponsored by stationery and homewares company Doodle Love. Based in the lovely English Lake District, Doodle Love was founded in 2010 by designer Layla Harris, a hopeless romantic with a quirky sense of humour. Inspired by her own upcoming wedding, long bike rides in the sun, and steaming brews in china cups, Doodle Love was born. Doodle Love combines paper with personality, with eye-catching designs featured on calendars, greeting cards, fine art prints and stationery. And if you're keen to find some order amidst the back-to-school chaos, Doodle Love also have a selection of calendars starting in September. Beautiful, functional and affordable, each design is led by a love of colour, simple lines and shapes. And to top it off, everything you purchase from Doodle Love is sustainably packaged with elements that can be reused or recycled with free postage. You can find Doodle Love online at doodlelovedesigns.com, on Etsy and Not on the High Street, and you can follow them on social media at Doodle Love Designs.
Even with casting now, and the different roles that are available, there's still so much, I don't know what the word is, argument around casting, and I know like when Sharon Duncan Brewster played Stella in Streetcar Named Desire at Royal Exchange, there was some racist hoo-ha around that. So, well, how can Sharon Duncan Brewster play the sister of Maxine Peake? Okay, it's a play. It's all pretend. A documentary.
Honestly.
And actually, Maxine Peake isn't from the Deep South either. It's all pretend.
I hate to break it to you. She's from Bury.
When it comes to the amount of melanin in someone's skin, we take issue.
Yeah.
None of us are Americans on this stage.
Yeah.
Tennessee Williams wrote this, and it's like, you know, it's. I think it's amazing. When Noma Dumezweni was played Hermione.
Yeah, in Harry Potter. Yeah.
You know, it's just like.
Yeah, and it's true. It's never stated anywhere that Hermione was white. So
yeah,
it's like that's just something.
J.K. Rowling said that.
Yeah. And
it's just like one of the reasons, because we loved the first book, but when we saw the film, it was one of the whitest films I've ever seen.
God,
and I sort of lost interest a bit, because at least when you're reading the book, you've got your imagination. Yeah. Whereas once they made the film, it just became a very posh Wizarding school.
Yeah.
And is that real? No.
Yeah.
You don't have Hogwarts is not real. But Hermione has to be white. You know, it's it's very interesting stuff. But I think it's very important to me, for me and my journey, not to get caught up in that toxic negativity, because it doesn't serve me for my little time that I've got left on this planet. I've only got so much time, and it's something that I've been saying recently. When I get a self-tape through, or someone asks me to do something, I just think, okay, so my mum died at 85, my dad died at 77. So possibly, let's give myself an extra 5 years or so. That means I've got 30 years ish. I ain't wasting my time.
Yeah.
I'm wasting my time anymore, not on these negative people, not on people asking me to do nonsense.
Yeah. And
if I do choose to be with people or spend time with people, or even when it comes to making a cooked breakfast, I'm really weighing up now what I do with my time and my energy.
Yeah.
Whereas I think before I just used to fly by the seat of my pants, you know. Which I love that. I love that term. Flying by the seat of my pants. It's so old-fashioned, but it really does describe me.
Yeah.
My life. I've literally not had a plan and flown by the seat of my pants.
And oh my goodness, the adventures you've had along the way.
Oh, it has been a bit nutty, I have to say.
Seeing as we touched a bit just now on casting, and you talk about self-tapes, do you want to tell me a bit more about, because you were saying, so biochemistry, you decided, right, I was miserable, that's not for me. And so you spent a lot of time in the drama department, and then you went on tour, didn't you, with the Snow Queen? Do you want to tell me a bit about your acting journey, how that progressed?
Yeah, because well, I have to say my first ever role was the Virgin Mary at Sunday School.
Iconic.
And they say, you know, people who play Mary and Joseph often go on to have very successful lives. I don't know how true that is, but I had the lead. I played Mary, right? And I also remember at Sunday School, we used to have this like little competition, and I did this reciting a poem. Slowly, slowly, swinging low, I see where the wild flowers grow. quicker, swinging higher. I can see the shining spire. It was like, basically, it was a poem about being on a swing, basically. And I remember doing the poem, and but didn't hear anything from the competition. And there were these two sisters who worked at Sunday school, the Oakley sisters. They were scary, man. And I remember one of them saying, "Oh, well, I don't think you've won anything with that." But actually I did win, but my prize got held up in the post, and I won a book, a little ladybird book, the Billy Goat Gruffs, which I've still got.
Oh, wonderful. Your first award.
My first award. Never mind Oscars, man. I got the Billy Goat Gruff book. From a young age, I knew that I could stand up in front of people and perform. And I went to youth theatre. So that's right. I had to tell you about Julia Barry.
Oh yeah, you said. Who's Julia Barry?
I have to tell you about Julia Barry. So Julia Barry was in the sixth form, and the sixth form at our school were allowed to wear their own clothes. The rest of us had a uniform. French blue, it was called, the uniform. And we used to have, at our school, we had an orchestra. We did Handel's Messiah every year. We used to have plays. We had carol services, very musical performance. We did bits of Shakespeare on stage, and the whole school would come and watch. Fantastic. And they did the sixth formers did a production of The Importance of Being Earnest. And Julia Barry was in it. And I remember I was a fifth former, and I remember going to see it, and I could not take my eyes off this girl on stage. She was absolutely brilliant. And so I plucked up the courage to go up to her afterwards. And I said, "Excuse me, I thought you were really good. I'd like to be an actress." And Julia Barry goes, "Oh, why don't you come along to youth theatre?" Which is Greenwich Young People's Theatre, GYPT. "Oh, why don't you come along?" I can't remember what night it was now. I was like, okay. So my dad drove me. Couldn't go anywhere unchaperoned. And my dad took me and waited for me. And that's when I was like, these are my people.
Brilliant.
These are my people.
Yeah. I
didn't know that term at the time, but it was like taking in my jeans, learning to smoke cigarettes, don't tell anyone. Just like seeing these people with different color hair and makeup. And there was a couple who always wore vintage clothes, Tracy, and I can't remember what her name was. And one of the women, girls, Sandra James Young, we are still fast friends now.
Oh, wonderful.
I've known Sandra James Young since I was 15. And that's where it really took off. And then I went from Greenwich Young People's Theatre to Old Vic Youth Theatre. And then I did a show at the Royal Court Activists, Hard Time Pressure. So in my teens, 15, 16, 17, that's where I really performed.
Wow. That's a lot, and quite, recognised stages, or,
Yeah, I've been on the Old Vic stage. It was so good. Out of Focus, that show was called. And then I went to university to do this biochemistry degree, which it's interesting. In a parallel universe, of course, I would have gone to drama school. But I didn't have English, I didn't have arts, because I'd done all sciences. It was obvious that I would do biochemistry as far as my parents were concerned. But also for me, it was a way of getting out and being independent and being my own person and going off to halls of residence, and which was very, very strange. So I was 18 when I went, but it was October in those days. So I turned 19. So I was one of the eldest, but the least experienced. And like you say, I got in very quickly, in the drama department, and did Three Little Pigs, I think, one show I did. and then played the witch, and then got the role of the Snow Queen. And we went to Edinburgh with that show. And yeah, so by the time I left university, just bought a copy of the stage in those days and started going to auditions.
Oh, the good old romantic days of the stage.
Oh, yes. And in those days, it was between you and the director.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have casting directors and producers and this buddy and that buddy getting involved in your business. You meet the director, you audition, and also in those days, you had set audition pieces.
Mm.
So you would have your audition piece, which of course you perfected.
Yeah.
You would have your song, which of course you perfected. None of this reading. Also, because I have a form of dyslexia, I couldn't read out loud at school. Well, I could, but it was like they were interested, and this reminds me of the gnome thing.
Yeah.
Interested in, and everyone in the class would be groaning every time I was asked to read out loud. It was humiliating, really painful. So for me, having a set audition piece was great because I'd be really prepared. I wouldn't be worrying about my reading, and I could just concentrate on my acting. So yeah, and I started off at the first, I did a community thing with a Greek theatre, and then I did Wazalendo 84, the Kenyan African theatre at the Africa Centre in Covent Garden. Oh, that was amazing. There was a cast of like 25, all singing, all dancing about the trial of Dedan Kimathi, who led the Land and Freedom Army in Kenya against the British, and they executed him in 1952. They called it the Mau Mau, but Kenyan people, that was just a way of it. The Mau Mau was a derogatory term, really. And the Kenyans knew them as the Land and Freedom Army. From there, went on, did The Tempest, played Trinkio and Alonso, toured nationally. Loved doing that, 1984 theatre company. And then and then I worked with a black theatre company and I got my equity card. So by 1985, so I'd only been acting for a year.
Gosh.
Got my equity card in 1985. Went on to theatre in education with the theatre centre, which was amazing, creative, again, being yourself, creating shows, touring schools all over the country. And a lot of the touring I did, I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did touring, staying all over the place, so sweat, all that. I don't know.
Different when you're younger, isn't it? Before.
Oh my days. Well, the things I did when I was younger, and going out and partying, and doing we do a 10 o'clock show and a 2 o'clock show.
Oh God, yeah. When I used to work at the Library Theatre in Manchester, and all through the Christmas show, of course, there'd be the 10 a.m. shows, and I was working on front of house or sometimes backstage in the costume department, and literally every usher, every backstage person, every actor was out till about 3 a.m. every morning, and then back in, and the performers were on stage at 10 a.m. doing all sorts of hijinks. It's like, it was hardcore.
It was amazing, absolutely amazing. I sort of got so much experience very quickly, and but just loved it. It just came completely naturally to me.
Yeah.
And it's something that I know. I have tried to do other things. And I remember when all through my 20s, I was saying, I'm an actor, darling. I don't work in bars. And, if I'm not acting, I'm not earning. That's it. I wasn't having it. I'm resting. I'm preparing for my next role. Very old-fashioned, sort of, even when I did.
Very Withnail of you.
Oh, see, I've never seen that.
Haven't you?
I've never been. I've just two scruffy-looking white boys.
Well, Withnail's got a bit of Sandra in him, so.
Yeah, Yeah, so it was, I was, and I remember someone said to me once, oh, well, you're never going to grow up until you've got a proper job. And I'm just like, well,
yeah.
What does grow up mean?
Yeah. Well, I was wondering actually, as you were telling me this, how did your parents feel about this? Because they'd kind of encouraged you towards biochemistry as your teachers had, and like you're saying, proper jobs, but you were clearly working as an actor. What was their
My mum saw every single thing I was in.
Bless.
Every last little thing my mother come to see. And she never ever said well done, but she came to see everything. She came up to Perth. I was in Golden Girls in Perth. She came to see me in the back eye. She saw everything I did before she got ill, because she had Alzheimer's. She saw me because she used to watch Emmerdale.
Mm-hmm.
She saw me a little bit in Emmerdale, but by then she was a bit confused. And she got to a point where I remember very, very, very clearly the day she didn't know who I was. And what we would do is we each would take turns to ring her. We'd each have a day to ring her and make sure she'd eaten and see how she was. And my day was Tuesday. And I remember ringing her and saying, oh, hi, Mum, it's Sandra. Sandra? Yes, Sandra, your third born, your third daughter. And it took her a while, and unto this day, I don't think she really knew who I was. She carried on the conversation, bless her, and she was, very sweet. But she saw everything I did. Dad really didn't get involved. He didn't see anything. The only thing Dad saw me do was I did oh Lord, for my sins I did this was it Dove? I did this advert where I was in a choir, and it's this anti-cellulite cream. And he was in hospital. He had cancer, and he towards the end of his life. And I was able to show him that, but that's the only thing he
I mean, an actor's got to work, whether it be Shakespeare or cellulite cream.
Well, that's the thing. I loved doing it. The thing that annoyed me though was that they didn't use my voice for it. They'd already recorded the voice. Right. They just need someone to perform. I still had to perform on the day because otherwise it just doesn't look real if you're not singing. But yeah, Mum saw everything. So no one ever said to my parents never ever said to me, don't do it. I remember my dad used to say, do something with your life. And I remember saying to him, by that point, I was single mum. And I said, well, I'm raising my daughter. That's the most important thing. And actually, with all the work that I've done, the most important job for me, in inverted commas, of course, is motherhood, hands down. I would happily give up all the acting, all the teaching, but I would never, ever give up being a mum.
When did you become a mum?
1991, so I was 28. And by the time I was 30, I was a single mum.
Okay.
And thank God, because I'm telling you, I can't cuss him because he might hear this, but I'm so glad I did it on my own. Because I raised her the way I wanted to, and she's gone on to be a fabulous 31-year-old wonderful woman. Yeah, she is amazing. She's absolutely, I'm so proud of her. I wish I could, I sort of have so much love and respect for her, And she's amazing. She is absolutely amazing. So I couldn't be happier. And I know, and again, for me, being a parent is getting out of their way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just feel like, let them express who they are, let them be who they came here to be, rather than saying you've got to be an accountant, or you've got to be a doctor, or you've got to be, who have you come here to be?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think is that's what I found exciting about being a parent, was being able to go, off you go, you're fed, you're clean, you're watered, you're safe.
Mm-hmm.
Go explore this planet and what you're here to do, what you're here to be more, just, which is, I think, what we're here to be is maybe more important than what we're here to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what comes first, but
I like that thought, being before doing. Yeah.
And that's definitely something that the rheumatoid arthritis has taught me, because I can't be jumping up and running around all over the place the way I used to. I'm having to take extra special care of myself,
mm-hmm.
which I believe that that's partly why maybe my body has caused me pain, because I need to take better care of it.
Because I've been seeing on Instagram that you've been experimenting with different alternative therapies, and one of them was cold water swimming. Or were you actually dunking into buckets of cold water as well?
Let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
See that man Wim Hoff?
Mm-hmm.
See him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. So what I practice the Wim Hoff method.
Yeah.
And before I discovered Wim Hof, I was already doing cold showers to bring down my inflammation. I was doing like 14-minute cold showers.
Wow.
And you know, in Lancashire, the water's cold, right?
Oh, yeah.
We got proper cold water, not like London water that warms up by the time it gets to you. This is like cold water. But then I discovered Wim Hof, and what is great about his method is, yes, there's the cold therapy, so either a cold shower or ice baths, but there's also the breathing,
mm-hmm.
and also the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing the cold showers before, I didn't understand about the mindset, and it's about embracing the discomfort, and it's about saying that, yeah, well, for me, it's about saying, well, no, maybe life isn't always easy, but you get through it. You feel it and you move through it. So for me, the main thing has been improving my sleep. And this is what I've got to over 5 years, improving my sleep, Wim Hof method, and greatly reducing my alcohol intake.
Yeah. So I guess anti-inflammatory then.
Yeah, no more of this bottle of gin a week.
Yeah.
And I love gin and tonic. I love it bad,
mm-hmm.
but I've had to give it up. I'll have maybe like over the weekend, I'll have a couple of glasses of red wine with my food, but even that is better if I avoid that.
Right.
So the rule at the moment is no alcohol from Monday to Friday for sure. But the man keeps bringing in nice wine, so I'm blaming him. But yeah, so none of the, I used to drink buckets of champagne and
mm-hmm.
not Prosecco, champagne. I drink Prosecco. So yeah, so I just sort of had me, but I'm not saying that I'll never drink again, but it can't be a regular thing for me anymore.
Yeah.
Which I am grieving that all smoking, all drinking Sandra.
Yeah.
I really like her.
I bet she was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a bit of a rebel, a bit of a, so what the fuck are you looking at, sort of thing. But, you know, and I mean, I think that is the part of me that has, I'm still working on being a calmer person. But I don't think I keep thinking, oh, well, you're 60 in a few months, and you can't be that wild child anymore. But I don't think she's ever gonna. I'm talking about myself in
the third person,
which is a bit scary, but it is that thing. I do understand that I'm complex. I think we are all complex, actually, and I think I have different facets to my personality. I have different voices. I have different drives. I have different seasons all within one day. And I'm learning to just honor who I am in each moment. And, I know how, there is this thing of, people saying, oh, well, as you get older, blah, blah, blah. No. My age is whatever it is. I don't have to compare myself to anyone else of my age. And also in this business, you get to a certain age and you're not supposed to work. In the past 4 weeks, I've had to do 12 self-tapes.
Oh, great.
Which is the most self-tapes most auditions I've ever had in my life.
You're in demand.
And so I mean, I don't know what's around the corner, and that's the nature of this business, and I think that's something that will always keep me on my toes. But that isn't the norm, if you know what I mean. Yeah. If I was to believe in the norm, then I wouldn't be where I am now. And mindset, which takes me back to the mindset work that we did. There's this, this thing of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If we believe that when we get old, no one wants us, guess what?
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the most important thing I've learned is that I want myself, that I love and respect and think the best of myself. And whenever I feel like I'm getting down and stuff, it's because I'm not on my own side. If someone says something mean to me or does something mean to me, if that affects me, it's because it's tuning in with that self-doubt in me. And that's getting smaller and smaller. That fearful part of me is getting smaller and smaller. I don't think I'll ever be fearless, but I'm a little less fearful each day. And I think that that's something that maybe that is a goal of mine now, to let go of the fear, because I think that I remember I was trying to think, there's that joy and pain people talk about.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, well, what's the opposite to fear? And I think it's love. I think it is that thing of when you can be open and loving and fearless. And the world that we live in often teaches us the opposite of that. Oh, don't be too open. Oh, you got to protect yourself. There's those horrible people. There's those racists. There's those sexists. There's those misogynists. There's all these people out to these negative forces out to get you. So you have to have your barrier up. But if you have that barrier up, you can't let the good things in either. And I think that's a big thing that especially being a Londoner as well, where you've got you've got to look tough. Do you know what I mean? You've got, like, you can, no one's going to try and mug you. So, and that's something else that I've learned moving up here, is that it's pretty safe. I mean, London's pretty safe. I never really saw any awful violence. I only saw one crime when I was growing up in London, and I was already grown when I saw that. And I always felt safe, but maybe that's because I was born and bred there. So it was like my manner. So why would I be afraid? So in some sense, coming up to live in Lancashire has brought up other fears for me. For a long time, it's like, oh, this place is a bit quiet. I can't sleep. It's too quiet. Where are the sirens? Where are the helicopters? I just like, it took me a long time to get used to the fact that it's quiet and it's safe. It's not quiet because something bad's going to happen.
That's interesting. Yeah, associating silence with something bad, imminent. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of like the calm before the storm.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm very grateful. I've learned so much. The whole way we were talking about north-south divide, we were talking about black, white, we were talking, and the male-female thing. It's fascinating. I know we're just one couple, but I've learned so much being in a loving relationship.
And this is Roger who brought you up to Lancashire, isn't it?
Yes.
Lovely Roger.
Yes. Moved to Bacup first. Have you been to Bacup?
I have, yeah.
It was microclimate up there. It was good, lovely. I loved the house that we lived in. He'd fixed it up himself because he's a joiner and carpenter and very, very handy. But yeah, then we moved to Rawtenstall. Was it 2016? Yeah, because I joined yourself and Jane in 2015.
Yeah, that was the agency that I used to work for. Yeah.
And then then we moved here 2016, and then I played Negro Woman in Streetcar Named Desire.
Yes.
Which they keep wanting to call Black Woman. I'm going, look, it's Negro Woman. Tennessee Williams didn't know about Black Woman. She's Negro Woman for a reason, because being a Negro in his time represented something.
Yeah.
So don't try and dilute it and modernize it. Don't mean the same thing, but that's another story. So artistically, I think I really enjoy looking at a script and why is this like this? What does this mean? And that's why sometimes I know there are directors that would never work with me again.
Their loss.
My mouth too big. But I just think if I see something and interpret something and see something, it's nice to work with a director that want to know what you think. Not all do, of course.
Yeah, and that's it. It's as much your choice of who you want to work with. And and like you said, it's a two-way relationship with the director. I know that not all directors would agree with me, but I think to get the most out of your actors.
Yeah, you would hope so. And I think that's why I think doing the writing is something that writing doesn't come as easily to me as acting. Acting is something it's just in my blood. Writing is something that I enjoy the end result of, but I'm not too crazy about the process.
But you've written 3 books now, haven't you?
Well, I've self-published 2, and I'm working on my 3rd, which is a collection of short stories that's looking at me going, when are you going to get on and get me written? When I've got time. I'm busy right now.
Busy resting.
I'm busy resting. But for me as well, again, that process is ongoing. So if I'm working on a character, when I get up in the morning, when I'm doing my breathing or my meditation or my yoga or whatever I'm doing, it all feeds into, I think she might do this or they might do that. And I think it's been the same with the writing. I mean, the first book was I wrote when my daughter was 16, which is I'd say a parenting book, but it's just about how I parented, called Listening to My Daughter. So that was, because for me, it is as simple as listening to what your child is telling you, whether it's ga ga ga, or whether it's I don't want that, or I would like that. It's listening and giving them that space. So, but it was rejected by a couple of people, and me typically put it aside. Oh, they say it's not good enough, so it's not good enough. And then in the end, I read this thing again. I'm just like, this is good, man. And so I self-published it, and quite quickly after that, I got together a lot of the poems and writings and a couple of short plays that I'd written that have had play readings and performances and things, and put those together and published that. That's called Things White People Have Said to Me, which is the first poem. And it's literally, I call it a verbatim poem. It's literally what white people have said to me and the year it was said. And of course, behind each of those comments, there's a whole story.
Yeah.
And the first one was my first day at school, and I can't say it, but it's N-word, pull the trigger, bang, bang, bang. And I learned that on my first day at school from a little boy who was sitting there, we're having our lunch, and he taught this to me. So I went home singing it. And of course, my mum went mad. And I was 4, and I had no idea what the problem was. Of course, not until you get older, you realize, oh, that's not a nice thing to say to someone. But someone taught that little boy that, right? Where did he get it from? Going back to what we were saying about breaking the cycle, it's like he didn't know he was doing anything wrong. I do not believe that little 4-year-old knew that he was doing anything wrong when he taught me that, because he actually taught it to me.
On your first day of school?
My first day of school. And so to be that innocent, we were both 2 innocent children perpetuating something toxic, heinous, horrible. But and that's one of the reasons I thought it was important for me to write, is so that to give people an insight into what it's like being Black in this country. Yeah. And when you have, what's the boy called? Fox saying this is the most tolerant country in the world.
Is it Lawrence Fox?
That's the one. Ugh. So you're going to tolerate me like I'm a cockroach. Tolerant? Yeah. What's tolerance got to do with it? Why are you having to tolerate me? I'm another human being. Yeah. Even within that term, he's seeing us as other, that we have to be tolerated. So packed, that sentence in itself is so packed with racism. And for someone to not even understand that, I just go, again, that's where no more energy. Yeah. No more energy. But that's why I have to, I feel it's my duty to write rather than my passion to write.
Okay.
Makes any sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that.
Whereas I will always be acting. No one's going to ever stop me. I'll always be performing dance. It's been interesting for me trying to prepare for this chat and just thinking about, when you asked me to do a timeline, was just like, bloody hell, Sandra, you've done all right. And you ain't finished yet.
I know. I love you summed it up at the end with, wow, busy bee. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a sort of skeletal sort of trying to get it all down.
Yeah. I know, because I mean, you've missed out all the parties, all the other stuff, you know.
and that's another reason why I say this is the autumn of my life now. What comes. I will harvest it and I will enjoy it. I did a film last year and that comes out soon. See what happens with that. I've signed one of those non-disclosure agreements, so I can't talk to you about that, unfortunately.
Oh, that sounds very lovely.
It's the first time I've been paid money, Java.
Brilliant.
And then I got back. I got a no from something recently, and the email said you couldn't have done anything differently. And I think that's kind of true of life. My life, I couldn't have done anything differently.
Yeah.
And it's interesting choosing a profession like acting. Being a Black woman in white Britain, these are all sort of things that could set you up to feel like a failure. And I refuse to feel like a failure. I've had loads of rejection. It's like whether in my personal life or my professional life. And it doesn't matter. As long as I don't reject myself. And I think I've been looking a lot of, if you put self in front of a lot of things, self-knowledge, self-respect, self-compassion. And I think it also works the other way around with something like self-rejection. When that thing of, like I was saying earlier, of not being on my side. Mm-hmm. In the same way I would be on my daughter's side or on Roger's side or on your side. What do you say about Java? You can't be talking about her like that. You don't know her. Who do you think you were? You know what I'm saying? And that's what I need to remember to do for myself. And particularly as creative people, I think we need to, because there's always going to be the naysayers. Always. There's always going to be those people that I think sometimes if we're happy and doing what we want to do, I've heard these people say, oh, well, it's all right for some. It's not easy. I'm not saying my life is simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And who wants easy anyway? Boring. Yeah. Boring.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I was just like, oh my God. And that's the other thing. I was just like, how do I prepare? I said, Sandra, just be present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just tell yourself. Because before I would, not long ago, I would have been writing notes and have quotes and, just sort of like, that's how I used to always go into counselling, make sure I'm ready for counselling. I've got an hour, I'm paying for this hour, I've got to make sure it's for this last 6 sessions of counselling I've had, I just show up.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all I ever wanted or hoped for from you. Just to show up and have a chat and learn more about you.
No, thank you so much.
You've been so generous and It's been an absolute joy to have a focused hour and a half to talk to you.
So I hope I didn't swear.
Oh, you did, but it's fine. There's plenty of swearing. I swear like a trooper. Don't worry. You can find Sandra's book, Things White People Have Said to Me, on Amazon, and you can find Sandra on Instagram at Sandra Cole UK. Sandra is represented by Jane Hollywood Associates. Please head to the show notes for links. Thank you to Doodle Love Designs for sponsoring this episode, and thank you for listening to On the Irregular. Please make sure you review and subscribe as it helps other listeners find us.